The brain is the most mysterious part of the body. Even though countless studies have been done on it, it's still very hard for scientists to know everything about it. But because of countless efforts and studies, researchers have found some very fascinating facts about the brain. Some of these things are so unbelievable they'll baffle you, but all of these are done by scientists and hence proved. So, let's look at 10 things that you didn't know the brain can do. But before we get into that, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Number 10. Sense Earth's magnetic field. It's been found through studies that animals are about to sense the Earth's magnetic field. Many of the animals, ranging from birds to marine mammals to insects, use the field to navigate, but this ability has always been assumed to be absent in human beings. After all, if we had this ability, why do we spend so much time on navigation in the past? As it turns out, we might just have it, though not to the level of other animals. In a recent study, researchers put 84 participants in a box without any electromagnetic disturbance called a Faraday cage. They created an artificial magnetic field and gradually changed its orientation, then observed the reaction in the brain. To their surprise, there was a definite reaction in the sections of the brain that deal with sensory stimuli. The participants couldn't conclusively feel anything, and the reaction was limited to changes in magnetic orientation that would be found in nature. Number 9. Natural alarm clock. We all know someone who claims to have a natural alarm clock. A natural alarm clock is said to be in your brain, which wakes you up at a specific time in the morning or at any time of the day. You must have heard someone say, "I don't need an alarm. I am an alarm." Before you proceed to shut them down with research on how that's not possible, if you actually look into it, you'd be surprised to know that they aren't kidding. The natural body alarm clock is quite real and is as good, if not better, than any alarm money can buy. The way it works is that if you need to have proper sleeping schedule that you stick to, as per research, it works to stress hormones released by the brain a few hours before your wake-up time. That stress could be of anything work-related or exams. If you have a proper sleeping schedule, then you'll find yourself waking up in the mornings a few minutes before the alarm ring. The brain notes down the time, and because it hates the alarm clock too, it wakes you up right before the alarm rings. All of this is happening in your subconscious. Number 8. Listen and learn during sleep. We believe that sleep is a part of shutting down for your brain. There's no brain activity instead of maybe dreaming, but you'd be surprised to know that the brain can learn during sleep. The brain is capable of doing that as long as it happens during the REM phase. The brain is very active in REM phase, and that's where dreaming happens. In a study published in Nature Communications, they put 20 volunteers to sleep and played acoustic patterns at them in all stages of their sleep. They were asked to identify the same patterns when they woke up. The researchers found that the people could identify the sound patterns heard during the REM phase, but didn't recognize the ones from other deeper phases of sleep. That doesn't mean that you can study while sleeping, so don't try this at home. It's just to demonstrate that the brain has the ability to learn even when it's in shutdown mode. Number 7. Learn piano with imaginary practice. Everyone knows that to be good at something, you need to practice it almost regularly until you reach perfection. Practicing can include anything from learning a new language to making something a habit or even handling a rejection. But there are things which you can learn with your brain power, especially a piano. Yes, if you thought you only need physical practice for a piano, we're here to tell you that you're wrong. Apparently, according to science at least, simply imagining practicing the piano does the same thing to your brain as actually doing it. A study by Nobel laureate Santiago Ramon y Cajal, who dedicated his life to understanding the impact of mental practice on the brain, shows the power of the brain. Back in 1904, he taught basic piano lessons to 2 groups of subjects who had no previous experience with instruments. While one group was taught on the actual piano, the other was just told how to move their fingers and what the notes sounded like. At the end of it, he found that both groups had learned to play the sequence they were taught at a similar skill level. Just seeing regularly and noting down the movements can teach you an instrument. Number 6. Instantly judge someone's character. This is quite straightforward, but many people won't believe that. No matter how non-judgmental we claim to be, when we meet someone for the first time, we inadvertently make a mental impression of them based on just visual movements. This is well explained in the book Thinking Fast and Slow. This happens in our RAM of the brain, which is the random access memory. As soon as you see them, the brain makes a subconscious profile of the person, and a much more accurate one too. Research shows that the brain is scarily fast at making up judgments about other people, taking about 0.1 seconds for the whole process. More importantly, its judgments turn out to be right, whether it's about their sexuality, competence at the workplace, or political affiliation. It's when you start to think on your own and override your brain's judgments that they turn into stereotypes that are often inaccurate. The cues that the brain notes are also impossible to fake. So, do you still think you're non-judgmental? Number 5. Autopilot mode. Every person wants to have an autopilot mode for the brain, especially on hectic workdays when we're zoned out and just want our bodies to function on their own. How awesome would it be to just zone out and let your body take over? Because other than your full attention, it already has all the parts needed to complete the job. You'd be surprised to know the brain doesn't just have an autopilot mode of its own, but it's much better at a given task than the active part of the brain. Studies have found that once you get good at something, the brain relegates the processing of that task to a separate brain region called the default mode network, or the DMN, which deals with subconscious processing. In one of those studies, 28 subjects were asked to play a card game that required a bit of learning and monitored their brain activity. Things went as expected at first, though when they got good at the game, it got shifted from the active regions to the DMN. Their responses became faster and much more accurate too. This includes everyday tasks like unlocking your car and driving the same route to work every day. Number 4. Predict the future. This gets everyone excited the most. The interaction between the eyes and the brain has become a topic of interest among neuroscientists for quite some time now. Properly mapping out the pathways between our eyes and how the brain processes that information can help give us more of an insight into how the visual processing part of the brain works. It may take a while, but we've made some key discoveries in the past few years, one of them being the brain's ability to predict the immediate future. We can look slightly into the future this way by predicting things. In a study, researchers found that because of the delay in the information from the eye to the brain, it forms its predictions of what's going to happen next, which gets more accurate with age, as our ability to process data increases with time and experience. It bases it on a previous behavior and does it before we can consciously figure it out. Has this ever happened to you? Number 3. 360-degree awareness. You must have heard about the sixth sense. And no, we're not talking about the movie here. The sixth sense is when it comes to knowing if someone is watching them from behind. You're supposed to feel uneasy, start sweating, and feel the hair on the back of your neck stand up. It's thought of as a vestigial sense from our hunter-gatherer days, but the plot twist is that it's not. The actual reason it happens is that we're perfectly able to observe all 360 degrees of our surroundings. If the eyes seem to be limited to the scope of your field of vision compared to other animals, it's because the brain doesn't need to be able to look behind it, as it's already aware of the surroundings. Studies have found that our sense of hearing is quite accurate at detecting even the slightest shift in our surroundings, especially the parts we can't see. That's seen in blind people who enhance their hearing and use it instead of eyes. This way they can be almost as good as people with eyes. That, combined with our other senses, provide the brain with a largely accurate view of all 360 degrees of what's around us. And with that, it's now time for today's subscriber pick. Today's photo was sent to us by a subscriber. If you come across a photo online and want to know more details about it, just send it over to us. We might even feature it on a future video. Number 2. This picture is probably from a movie or television series, and it doesn't show anything amazing about the brain. It just shows how the brain looks in real life, which is quite fascinating too.
I saved the best for last, but first, I have a quick challenge that takes only 5 seconds to complete. If you can leave a like and subscribe within the next 5 seconds, you'll get 10 years of amazing luck. Just try it, it really works.
Number 1. Falsely convince itself of having committed a serious crime. Let's be real, we've all been here. We might not even have done something wrong, but whenever something offending, like a crime, is reported, you directly try to link it with yourself. One of the most complex and mysterious parts of the brain is how it deals with memories. A big part of that mystery is false memories, things that never happened but you clearly remember. It's also been known as the Mandela effect. We're not just talking about convincing yourself about borrowed money that never happened, but serious stuff like theft or even murder. In one study, 70% of subjects were falsely made to believe that they had committed crimes like theft or assault with a weapon by basic memory retrieval techniques in interviews. How the brain is convinced is still a mystery. That's our list of 10 things your brain can do but you didn't know about. Which one is the most fascinating function for you? Let us know in the comments. And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel.